We are recording on what day is it? Wednesday, February 5th, 2025 at 2:12 p.m. Eastern Time with Miss Claire Lopez. It has been a minute since she's been on here. It's entirely my fault, but it's been a minute since she's been on here. But Claire's obviously been on here a zillion times before. Go to the links in the description, find her other appearances, find her Twitter, all that good stuff. But as we were just saying, yeah, it's a breakneck. We were just talking about Joe Kent, and I was actually texting with another buddy of mine, Clay Martin, who's an author. He's been on here. He served with Joe Kent, and he and I were
Mm.
texting back and forth, going, every time I open Twitter, Trump's doing something new. And during that conversation, he goes, "Hold on, look at this," and it was the whole, I'm proud to announce Joe Kent. We're both like, "What is going?" It's so fast, and it's just. I mean, I honestly, I couldn't be happier. I really, I don't, not to immediately get into the metaphysical. That was divine intervention last summer. That we would be, I don't even want to know where we would be versus where we are now. It's almost, if it was a movie, you would say that's cheesy because it's gotten, everything is so good. But with that, I'm going to post a live link. Miss Claire Lopez, how are you?
Great to be with you again, Tommy. It has been too long, and we'll catch up here. Yeah, I mean, it feels like, I don't know what, this is the definition of blitzkrieg, or maybe in the middle, not the eye, because that's calm, but the middle of a hurricane. The winning just keeps rolling out, doesn't it? I was just listening before I came on with you to a press conference with the new White House press secretary, Caroline Levitt, who is just impressive, I think. And she handled questions on every topic you can imagine. Yeah, of course, a lot, out of Gaza and the Middle East, but many other things too. And no, she doesn't have a binder, does she?
No, and I mean, yeah, I guess God that's the newest thing. I was gonna say to touch on. I mean, it's insane that I think number one is it starts to get frustrating because when you see how quickly Trump zipped up the border and you
Yeah,
realize it was never incompetence, it was an active decision not to. Incompetence is bad. An active decision not to is so much worse. But
much
then
worse. Yeah.
the tariffs followed by Mexico saying they're going to put troops on their border and Canada saying they're going to put like what $1.3 billion into a troop surge on their border with US I guess intelligence or SIGINT
Well,
planes.
a joint task force is
Yeah.
how I understand that. Um, I'm looking at my own notes right
Oh,
here.
you're good.
Yeah, 10,000 troops for Canada as well to go to the border, and the establishment of some kind of a joint
Fentanyl. Wow.
security border task force. Yeah.
So I mean we can go into that, but I was going to say, and then but as that I mean that's already old news, which
Well,
is
I'll say one thing real quickly before we pivot away from tariffs, and that is that what we're looking at here is the art of the deal. I
oh
mean,
oh
playing
yeah.
out in front of our eyes. And the threat of tariffs, which is absolutely credible, 25% was to have been for Canada, 25% to Mexico, with an additional 10% on top of all the other tariffs already on China. That's real. But because of the negotiations aspect of this, I think it was expected by President Trump from the outset, probably, that the tariffs would never have had to have been imposed because the mere threat of them, with the size of the American economy vis-a-vis that of Mexico or that of Canada, just, really made it impossible for them not to give in and announce cooperation, which, it's to both of our benefits, we and Canada, we and Mexico, our benefits all around, to curtail the trafficking of illegal aliens across that border, those borders, north and south, and also especially to curtail the trafficking of fentanyl, which is coming in from both north and south. I don't know if folks realize this, but you know how the Chinese send precursor
hmm
chemicals to Mexico for the cartels there to mix it all up and press out the tablets. And by the way, China provides the pill presses too. And then that's all shipped across our border. Well, the same thing is happening in Canada on a smaller scale, yes, indeed. But there, China also ships the precursor chemicals to Canada. Gangs or cartels, whatever you want to call them, criminal outfits there, mix them up, press them out into pills, and they come across our border. So all of that is now going to be, curtailed as it should have been such a long time ago. But again, back to the tariffs, that was the threat hanging over their heads that brought them to the table to cooperate with what they should have done a long time ago, except under the Biden administration for the last 4 years, nobody pressed them to do that. Nobody made it in their interest to do that until Trump comes in. And then, just as you say, Tommy, it's been, just an absolute whirlwind of a couple of weeks. And here we are. The borders are, they're closed to all intents and purposes, pretty much.
It, I was gonna say not even, I mean, couple of weeks. It's been 16 days, so it's
Yeah,
technically been weeks. It's
yeah,
technically,
barely. I
but
mean, 3 weeks. Yeah,
there's so much stuff to cover that I guess we should maybe stick. I was gonna verge on a speculation, but you don't need to speculate when there is things happening. But for the sake of it anyway, I was gonna say, and maybe it's another show for another time, but
yeah. Go ahead.
if it can happen so quickly
Yeah,
and at such ease, and it wasn't just that no one wanted to, it's there's too much money to be made by trafficking people, trafficking sex slave, trafficking fentanyl.
yeah.
You'd start to, but I mean that's we can speculate all day, but that's really kind of what gets me is how this wasn't some crash project where the Manhattan Project, let's go to the moon. This is
Yeah.
something that happened in about 72
And
hours.
and again, no, nobody needed additional legislation passed out of
No,
Congress.
that's
The authority always rested with the executive branch, and all it had to be was deployed.
what was the
And
will.
that is what Trump has done, immediately. And we have the results. Border encounters are down to the mere hundreds per day now on our southern border. Um, and all of those protected status positions for Haitians, Nicaraguans, Cubans, and Venezuelans have been rescinded. I mean, one thing after another, you can tell that there was a lot of planning, obviously, that
Oh,
went into this.
I was
And obviously, between the November election, probably before, but certainly from the November election to January 20th, Inauguration Day, that was a crash program in lining up, all of these measures to be bang, bang, bang implemented through different, executive orders, executive memoranda, and simply issuing the orders, to our brand new border czar, Tom Homan, our brand new horseback riding Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, coming from the governorship of South Dakota. All it had to be were the orders issued to them, and they were ready and willing and capable of carrying them out. And here we are.
yeah, I was an hour ago just talking to a friend about that. There's definitely, I would imagine planning before he won the election, but I had this feeling because he won the election, and then every day you kind of see in the news where you'd be like, it was like Elon and Trump, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like we're working 20 hours. It's like he just won the election, and I was like, in my mind, I go, he knows he has 4 years, and just you have to throw everything at it. And they
Yeah.
came at it because it doesn't just seem. I mean, it seems almost with this has the detail of like a military operation. It's just one thing after another happening and cascading. It's like this isn't bull in a china shop. This is more like
Very,
surgeon,
very deliberate, very
surgeon.
um, urgent. Yeah, but
No,
but
no, not urgent.
just
Surgeon,
really.
like a surgeon.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, exactly. A spaced out one boom, boom, boom after
Yeah,
another. But I would add one other caveat here, and that is that the way they look at this, the administration, is not that they have a full 4 years, but that they have 2 years
yeah,
until the midterm elections, um, with majorities right now, slim though they be, in both the House and the Senate. That will come up to the
Hmm.
vote in the midterms in a bare 2 years from now.
Yeah, no, that's a better way to look at it. Um, and then I mean, even stuff like USAID.
Ugh.
I mean, I mean, could you make it more obvious that there are kickbacks when you see them going this, excuse my French, ape shit over USAID? That's how you know you're over the target. You're like, what is going on there? How many kickbacks are? Then
Well, I
it's
don't know about kickbacks. I mean, I really don't know if there were any
well,
or
sure,
are any,
whatever, kickback,
but
corrupt, whatever,
but
corruption at large.
obviously, even just looking at the lists that are coming out now of those NGOs and other causes
Sure.
that our taxpayer money went to through USAID, that's enough to shut the place down. The other part of that is that the Department of State, now with the very excellent new Secretary of State Marco Rubio, they have within the department a sub department unit for foreign aid. And that foreign aid is intended to be, yes, for the benefit of the beneficiaries, those receiving the aid, yes, but also always supposed to be calculated with an eye to America's national security, foreign, connections benefits. So um, that USAID can be, and I think is now being subsumed under Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, and the Department of State under that department there for foreign aid that already exists after a thorough scrubbing, of course.
Yeah, no, that's not. Yeah, I don't want to slander or allege. Yeah, no, whether there's kickbacks or not, corruption or not, regardless of any of that. Let's just say none of that's happened. Just the outright waste, though, of you cannot say this is this is peanuts to the U.S. empire. You can't say that when you're 2 weeks late to the victims of Hurricane Helene or of
Yeah,
East
yeah.
Palestine.
And I mean, and look how quickly, not to shift entirely,
I
but
don't care.
how quickly FEMA and USG, United States government aid, showed up in northwestern North Carolina. Um, just days after
Army
the
Corps of
president was inaugurated.
Engineers.
Army Corps of Engineers clearing, rubble and down trees and so forth that had been there ever since last fall when the storm swept through. Why wasn't that done before?
It's
It was
not
obviously
incompetence.
possible to do. Somebody decided just not to do it. And those poor people were waiting and living in tents as, a very cold, eastern US winter has been upon us for the last couple of months. Um, it once again shows that it wasn't the ability, it was the willpower to actually do it.
And I don't think anyone can reasonably say incompetent. I know there's a lot of incompetent people, but it's so obvious. You go, this was intentional negligence. This was don't do that. This is which is pure evil. It's pure.
It
It's not.
is. It is
It's
for those
not
poor
just.
people who've lost everything
I
and
know.
living in tents in the snow. Okay, even if they had heaters inside the tents, they're tents. They're not homes. And others who wanted to step in and help
We're
out
stopped.
were stopped from doing it, stopped from building. I forget which organization it was, building what they call those little tiny houses. It was the Amish, I think the Amish, right?
Yeah,
Um, who
micro
are
homes.
were on the scene, ready and willing and capable of building little houses, but they're actual, structures that are, much more than tents with heaters in them. And they were refused permission to do it because, well, they had to go through all the regulations and inspections and all this nonsense. And these poor people are, out in the cold.
Yeah, and it was not only that, and it's to get any coverage. Like I had General Mike Flynn and his people reach out to me to interview this was right after it happened to kind of get the word out about how they weren't allowed to go. And it's just like, how screwed is it? I mean, hey, I love my podcast and I'm proud of it. How screwed is it that General Mike Flynn has to contact me to
Yeah,
get the word out about so not only is there no help, there's no coverage. It's
right,
it's
right.
it's be I mean, everything we're seeing right now, I have no other explanation than it's just the justice of God. I don't know what else it is. And then Trump, I mean, and because everything's kind of getting just caught up in a flood of news. I mean, a couple days into the administration, he said that he had the military going to Northern California and
Oh,
turn
there
on.
too, with the
So that
fires.
was always
Exactly.
possible.
Well, and what else did he do that he talked about actually in various
An
speeches he
interview,
gave,
yeah.
interviews, turning on the water, all the water that had been flushed out to the Pacific
The
Ocean,
yeah
coming
the
from Northern California that should have flowed down to Southern where they need it so badly, but to save, these little
the
fishies
Delta smelt.
smelt, the water got sent out to sea. And Trump comes in. I don't know what kind of a switch he turned, but maybe it was a couple, but he turned them, and the water is now flowing to South Carolina.
and
I'm
and
sorry, to Southern California.
and it's and you have people saying Trump's now wasting their valuable like reservoir water, and it's like it really is the meme of a month ago you said it's not happening and it's a right wing conspiracy, and then now you're saying well the water is there and it's good that it wasn't. It's pure evil.
Oh, it
Um,
is.
it
Well,
it,
or just leftist lunacy, really. I
both
mean,
both.
they think that they're being, moral champions for saving this little fishy, while the reservoirs visibly in photographs were empty.
I will genocide the Delta smelt for one human. D-
Compared for people, I think people rank a little bit above a little fish.
yeah, well, I mean, but this, but it's that's indicative of such like a larger picture when it's like
Yeah,
it's well, how do we what about all these people coming over the border? And it's like take care of the fentanyl addicts on the street. Take care of the 22 veterans who
yeah.
shoot themselves a death. It's hey, you got hey, it's good to care in general. There's nothing wrong about caring for a fish, sure. But priorities. But to switch to the last, just because there is so much shit.
I
Um,
know. Yeah.
it's the what did Trump say about the U.S. taking Gaza or occupying Gaza? And I
Right.
saw a brief. He's diffuse ordnance, dangerous structures.
Mm-hmm.
That's about as much as I saw. Can you go
All
into
right.
that if you
So,
can?
so yes, as we know, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrived in the United States for a visit on Sunday, just a few days ago, and met yesterday in the White House for a joint press conference together with President Trump. And they were each standing behind their respective podiums. Did you notice, real quick, their ties? Did you notice their ties?
No.
So Prime Minister Netanyahu was wearing a red tie and a white shirt, and President Trump had a blue tie,
Oh,
just about this color, the color of the Israeli flag, and his
uh,
white shirt.
I didn't
And
notice
so they
that.
were kind of mirror imaging each other's um, color signals.
Sure,
Anyway, it was really nice.
I didn't
So
notice
they
that.
appeared, and during that press conference, for which many members of the press were in the room, big room, and it was filled, as well as people from the Trump administration. I know that J.D. Vance was there, Vice President Vance, um, and the newly confirmed Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, was there, and more from the Trump administration up in the front rows. And I'm sure that there were those from the Netanyahu entourage there as well. I'll note that uh, one of the most, I don't know, the best, most important new additions to um, the Netanyahu government is Caroline Glick, good friend, many, many years, who has been appointed um, Bibi's advisor or one of his advisors for international relations. Perfect position for her. She had served previously in an earlier government with Bibi Netanyahu, and now she returns and she's on this trip. So she was probably in the room as well. But so all of these people were there in front of the podiums of the two, and they took a lot of questions from the room. But in the remarks, first of all, What caught everybody's attention, and this was about evening or so last night, maybe 6 p.m. Eastern time or so, something like that. And I was watching it, and what caught everybody's attention and made everybody sit up and listen was the announcement by President Trump that the United States would be, quote, taking over Gaza.
Yeah.
We know already that Trump, had floated the idea of sending the population of Gaza out of the Gaza Strip to Egypt, to Jordan, maybe to other places. And he's absolutely right when he talks about it. Caroline Levitt talked about it too, including showing a great big photo up on the wall of the devastation in Gaza, where there's no services. There's no running water, there's no electricity. And aside from the humanitarian enclaves that Israel, the IDF, have already established, several of them across the strip, where, bona fide, cleared, checked out civilians can receive, shelter and food and water and medical care, whatever they need. Um, but aside from those places, the enclaves, the rest of Gaza really is a rubble heap. And both Caroline Levitt and President Trump have repeated this. And even as Israel has opened up what they call the Netzarim corridor, that corridor horizontally across about the middle of the Gaza Strip, opened that up for Gazans who had fled south earlier to return back north. Um, and to what though? That's the question. There's the place is level. It looks like the aftermath of World War II in I don't know, in Germany or something. It's just piles of rubble with no services. So the president Trump, has suggested that the population, number one, be allowed to uh, exit to other places, but number two, and this is the sticking part, um, which places, which countries would accept them. Now we know that across the world, some of these Arab Muslims from Gaza, from Judea, Samaria, they have relocated to places like Canada and Indonesia. Um, but we're talking here now about maybe a million and a half Gazans. Um, Number one, not sure how many of them really want to leave Gaza. And you can't forcibly evict them. I don't think that would be right. But then the second part of that, the flip side of that is which countries will accept them. And because many countries in the region, to include Egypt, of course, the home of the origins of the Muslim Brotherhood, of which Hamas is the Gaza branch, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Kuwait, each one of these has had prior experience with these Arab Muslims. And they were not happy experiences. I'll just name quickly one place, and that's Jordan. And we might remember back in the time of the current King Abdullah's father, King Hussein, in 1970, was what they call Black September, because in that month, September of 1970, um, the PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization, under Yasser Arafat, rose up against Jordan and tried to depose King Hussein, who unleashed the Bedouin Guard on them, slaughtered a bunch, and the rest went fleeing to Lebanon, which they then subsequently destabilized. So the point being here that every place these people have ever been, they've been trouble. They destabilize the place because they're essentially jihadis, Muslim brothers, or supportive of. And so that question then remains that the countries we've heard most often right around Israel, Egypt, Jordan, not willing to take them, and you can understand why. Um, but where else would they go? So they have to be wanting to leave, and somebody else has to be willing to take them, and that's the crux of the problem I see. and the fact that you cannot or should not, relocate a big bunch of them, hundreds of thousands at a pop, let's say, to any one place, because that absolutely certainly would destabilize whichever country that happened to be. So that is a question. But back to the press conference and President Trump's remarks last evening. He then said, as I said, that America would take over Gaza. And you can tell that he's thinking like a property developer, right? And he looks at this strip, which, for anybody who's been to Israel, let's say, and I've been there multiple times, and you go to the beachfront, let's say in Tel Aviv, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump up the road from Gaza, honestly. You can drive it, and we have ridden in a bus in a few hours. And that beachfront in Tel Aviv is beautiful. It's full of white sand beaches where people are enjoying the beautiful weather, the water, the Mediterranean, restaurants right there on the water, outdoor cafes. It's lovely. It's fantastic. And Tel Aviv, of course, is an urban, modern landscape, beautiful. Well, Gaza shares all of those physical characteristics. Beachfront on the Mediterranean, white sand beaches, or they could be. They have the same climate. And also something folks may not know, underneath Gaza is one of the largest freshwater aquifers in the world. So the fresh water exists, even if it didn't, Israel's a world leader in desalination techniques. The water of the Mediterranean, that is, of course, being salty. But Gaza doesn't even have to do that. They've got this aquifer. What's needed is electricity to pump that water up out of the aquifer into, pumping stations, and from there to customers, businesses, homes, whatever. Um, but to run the electricity that pumps the water, you need fuel, and that fuel has been, up until now, all seized by Hamas for its war machine. But the possibilities are there. That's what I'm saying. So this is what Trump is thinking about, and I think probably his buddy Steve Witkoff as well, another real estate developer. What could be done with this plot of land. Now, I saw an interview yesterday, also earlier in the day, with Steve Witkoff and Greta Susteren on Newsmax. And Witkoff was describing to Greta Susteren how long it's really physically going to take just to clear the rubble, all the collapsed buildings out of Gaza. And he said 5 years, even with the best effort. 5 years just to clear the rubble. Never mind reestablishing, infrastructure, water pipelines, electricity, and all of that, or beginning any kind of rebuilding. So it's a daunting task, but never let it be said that Donald Trump shrinks from a daunting task, especially if it has to do with development. But this is what he's thinking about, that once, cleared out of all the jihadis and jihadi sympathizers, of course, we've talked about this before, who are Hamas, fathers, sons, brothers, and husbands of the Gazan people. So that's a problem. Even for those who might stay behind and actually be bona fide civilians, if they're ideologically Muslim Brotherhood sympathizers and jihadis teaching their children, that's a problem. But it occurs to me to remember what happened after World War II, specifically in Japan, also in Germany. But I'm thinking of Japan because I know that General Douglas MacArthur basically took over
He
Japan
became
post World War II.
became the emperor. Yeah.
The emperor was deposed, and the entire governmental structure of Japan was reordered. And MacArthur took control as well of the schools, the curricula, the textbooks, all rewritten. And of course, that took a long time. And the truth, of course, is that we still have U.S. troops on
Oh
Okinawa
yeah.
to this day, as well as positioned in Germany, too. But look at how those two places, transformed and thrived and are now absolute world leaders in every category you could think of, technological and everything else, economies. I think that's what Trump has in mind. Um, but you're up against some really tough ideology there. That is the Islamic ideology. It's not Hamas ideology. It's Islamic, straight out of the doctrine, Quran, Sirah, Sharia. How do you change that in people's minds, including the young people down to children, who've been raised on this stuff in mosques and madrasas? That takes a lot of time. But these are the kinds of things, anyway, that were brought up last night. Some of my thoughts about it. But I can see, how Trump and Witkoff are thinking about this patch of land, and it really is a patch. It's really small, maybe 20 miles up and down north south, and maybe 10 across, something like that. Um,
I
I
didn't
can
know it was
see that
that
they're
small.
looking at it like developers, but that's what they were talking about.
I imagine that it was going to be a military emplacement.
Well, Caroline Levitt, again, back to the press conference today that I was watching, was asked more than once by reporters in the room, um, is President Trump ruling out positioning U.S. troops in Gaza? And she answered back both times that the president has not taken the decision to station U.S. troops in Gaza. She puts it like that, but she won't say, and he doesn't say, that he rules it out. Now, we may already know. Remember, I was mentioning the Netzarim corridor and how it was opened up, for people to come back north again. Well, the people on foot do not get a security check. They can just go right through. They're not carrying that much, maybe a backpack. But those who would want to come through in a vehicle, they do get checked. And of course, the vehicle does for what they're carrying. And we've already got U.S. contractors over there on the Netzarim corridor, former U.S. military, to help with the security checks of the vehicles. So that camel's nose is kind of already under the tent.
Hmm. Yeah, I figured that's what it would be. And I think the book Bates Nation by David Vine, it's about the U.S. bases around the world, and his position is more. I've had him on the show. He's a cool guy. I don't mean it in any disrespectful way. His more of like a this is evil. I looked at it more as just an interesting book. But some of the people he quotes in it are, and I don't disagree with them, as I don't remember when the quotes were, but it's basically like, when are you going to shut down the U.S. bases in Okinawa and Ramstein? And it was just like these spots were paid for with American blood. Like we'll shut them down when we see fit. And I do fully believe that if we're going to do these things, I have absolutely no qualm with the U.S. getting something
Well,
out
I
of
mean, in each of those places, Japan in East Asia, Germany now in Europe, each of them is threatened once again, but from without, not an
it.
internal ideology, but threatened from without. Japan
Yeah.
by an expansionist, aggressive China, and Germany by a neo-imperialist, aggressive Vladimir Putin and Russia.
Yeah. And I'm for the I imagine the people I'm aware that's not the US isn't doing that in Gaza. I know I'm using it as just a general example.
Hmm.
Ukraine, Iraq, I really do. If we're going to if you're going to get help, then I have absolutely no problem with the US getting something from it. Um, One thing I haven't really seen a whole lot of, and I don't know if it's because I haven't paid attention to, is how had I mean, kind of the largest refrain we heard during the Biden administration was like Trump had us energy as a criticism. Trump had us energy independent. Has he? What major steps has he? Because I haven't paid attention. I admittedly haven't looked for it. Um, what is he doing in terms of, for I guess simplest terms, drill baby drill?
Yeah,
Are we
so
moving back to that in what manners?
right. The number one measure, I think, at the top of President Trump's list is the easing or the canceling of onerous regulations. Now, I have a friend a buddy who lives in Texas, as it is, who actually keeps track of the numbers of new oil rigs, being set up. In other words, the drill baby drill part. And according to him, only a very few so far have been set up. But I would expect post, Trump inauguration. But I would expect that, over coming weeks and months, with regulations eased on, these oil producers, that more oil rigs would be set up, more drilling would begin again. I know that Anwar is going to be opened up again,
Hmm.
for example. Also, offshore drilling in the Gulf of America, for example, and other places. So that part might take a little bit of time before the easing of the regulations and incentives take a hold, and the oil companies actually can go out and begin, to unleash their productive power potential. But it's coming. It's just it probably feels kind of slow.
Yeah, and then yeah, stuff with like that. Like, not that I have any experience or wisdom in this, but you also have things that are like much longer time frames. And if something can happen this quickly under a president, it means it can go away that quickly under a president. So I'd imagine there's something to be said for, say, Exxon wants to build a new, $100 billion refinery or something, and it's like, but that might take 20 years to come online.
Oof, hope not. We desperately need a couple at least of new
Oh, no, I,
refineries.
I agree. But in terms of looking at it from their point of view,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
more, it's like,
Well,
well, who's the next president?
I'll mention that the newly confirmed director of the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, is former New York Representative Lee Zeldin. That's going to help a lot with clearing away all this red tape.
Hmm. Um, and another thing I haven't read, but I would imagine it's happening behind the scenes, and probably a reason why it's not as publicized, other than the big name, is kind of the mad dash at AI. And I know,
Yeah.
like the Operation Stargate, I didn't realize that's not U.S. funded. That's a private thing. I think what the
Mhm.
U.S.'s thing is removing regulations for energy production, because that's from what I understand about these giant computing clusters, is the real bottleneck is energy production, be it
Mhm.
nuclear,
Mhm.
coal, whatever. And that's but the Stargate, that's not U.S. funded. It's U.S. corporations, but it's not U.S. government. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that seems to be the mad dash that, when we see everything else that's happening in these 16 days, the fact that there doesn't seem to be out in front, maybe I'm just ignorant. AI tells me that it's not going on, it's that there's a reason why it's being kept quiet, but something's probably happening behind it. If all this
Yeah.
stuff's happening publicly, I would imagine that there's also classified initiatives that are
Oh, for
happening
sure.
at this
Yeah.
breakneck speed.
Yeah.
Do
No,
you?
I agree. Absolutely. And I'll tell you the other initiative that has caught my attention too, probably yours too, is actually SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative of President Ronald Reagan way
Yeah,
back in the 1980s,
I'm such a geek. I
commonly,
love SDI.
nicknamed
Star
Star Wars,
Wars.
right? Well, this is a system that it looks like is finally, well, technologically mature, which it may not have been back in the 80s, but it's a space-based system um, to catch the launch of missiles, to direct the targeting and the interception of them. In other words, when President Trump talks about an iron dome for the United States, he doesn't really mean Iron Dome, because that system, um, which Israel has deployed to great effect. I've seen it in action, as a matter of fact, above my hotel one night.
Jeez.
Um, but it is for short range projectiles. And as we know, of course, Israel has this multi-layered air defense system. An Iron Dome is the short range. And then you move up from that. You've got David Sling and Magic Wand. and most importantly, perhaps the Arrow system 2, 3, as well as Patriot missiles over there in Israel. But so Trump doesn't mean specifically that Iron Dome. He's using the term sort of figuratively to mean that we too need a multi-layered air defense system and that it would be space-based. And we have a Space Force now. Thank you, President Trump, from his first term, and Elon Musk, who worked closely with President Trump in that first term to establish the Space Force. Other elements of that, which I think are important, excuse me, include um, the network, Elon Musk's network, Starlink network of satellites, small, little miniature satellites all over throughout space, thousands of them now, and more are going up all the time. But that network is intended, at least partly, to be redundancy
Hmm.
for our United
A
States
comms blackout.
ground-based electric civilian grid, which otherwise is not protected right now from an EMP attack, be it cyber or a hostile, adversary with a nuclear bomb in the atmosphere, or the sun itself. We don't have that protection, but this network, at least up there now, is intended to be redundancy if it's grid down, in the United States. So all of that and the AI that you're talking about, I think is part of, I mean, I don't know how he keeps track of all of this, President Trump, that is, but I guess that's what he's got a team around him for. And Elon Musk, of course, is amazing.
Well, he's got the ace in the hole. He's got Elon Musk, who is I don't even know if he's human, but like, yeah, it's yeah, I don't I think Elon Musk was very correct when he said when he interviewed Trump last summer, and then when I guess Elon went on Joe Rogan the night before the election, said this is a civilizational fork in the road, and
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
he sees that, and so there's a reason why they're going so hard is because we got pretty close to just communist entropy,
Yeah,
decay,
yeah,
collapse, and I
we
think
did.
they saw that, and it's like, hey, get it while the getting's good, and
Absolutely.
yeah, it's. I mean, I'm waiting for because I'm geeking out. I'm waiting. They're gonna announce like a Mars mission or something. So
Oh yeah, I'm sure of
that's
that
what I
too.
want to see. I want to see that.
This
That's
is Elon's dream, right?
yeah. No, there's got to be that's got to be the payback for helping Trump get in office. Um, but right now, Mr. Clare Lopez, I actually do have to run. I have to go pick somebody up because
Okay.
I'm an idiot. It was awesome to get back on. We'll continue with the weekly shows. That was
Okay.
just it was one thing after another, but
Understood. Me too.
there's
No
also
worries.
yeah
Good
no
to be with you again. We'll
you
pick up again next week.
yeah I think we need to just at the rate everything's happening. I mean, it's
No
just
kidding, right?
it's the best problem to have. I could have never predicted
It
this a
is.
year ago.
It
It
really
really
is.
is. I mean,
Yeah.
I divine intervention. Um, but everybody listening and watching, please go in the description. Please go follow Claire on Twitter, and I'll send you this. And until next time, Miss Lopez, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tommy.
Yes, ma'am. Guys, thank you.